Hi guys, Rose here with my work log on my Persona 5 Oracle goggles. Now this is a long one, so I suggest you get something to drink. Like with all of my cosplay projects, I started off doing a ton of research. So I start off with Google Images. I was looking up different pictures of Futaba, whether it be fan art or official art, but then I stumbled across a YouTube tutorial. Luna Len's video on how they did Futaba's goggles was a huge source of information for me when I was working on mine. I'll link their video in the description, so make sure to check it out. Once I have an idea of how I'm going to make this project, so the goggles in this case, I make a list of everything that I'm going to end up needing to buy. I'm very forgetful, so writing things out, like in this planner, helps me keep track of what I need to buy or need to do. So once you're ready, load up your Amazon cart. You'll see I also picked up Yona of the Dawn because I love it. I bought my EVA foam on TNT Cosplay Supply's website, and I would highly recommend it because it was smooth on both sides, which was so much easier to work with. Luna Len provided patterns from working on their Oracle goggles, and you can find them in the description of their video. I would highly recommend them. They made things way easier for me to work with. I'm mostly using EVA foam on this project because, as you can see, it's thicker than standard craft foam, which I also use, but I want a sturdy base for this project. And as you can see, with a silver marker, I just traced out my pattern so that I can cut it out. You'll probably want both scissors and an X-Acto knife for this because it just makes it a lot easier. I use the X-Acto knife mostly for getting into corners, like how it is here. If you're using a dull blade like I am here, it might take a little extra time and work to get it to go all the way through the foam. Always make sure to label what kind of foam you're going to be cutting out of and how many pieces to cut onto your pattern so that it just saves a lot of potential headaches later. When you're buying your goggles, make sure you get the kind where you can screw off the lenses. This will become evident later on, but just trust me for now. With just the base of your eyepiece, lay it onto the faceplate part and trace out where you want the eye holes to be. You do that so you can get a perfect circle and so you know those eyepieces will fit in perfectly. I actually ended up going back and redrawing my circles because I thought they were a little too close together when I held it up to my face. Next, Futaba has these 4 small cutouts where her nose would be, so just go ahead and dot those on. Next, take out your X-Acto knife and cut out the holes for the eyes. And if you ended up redrawing them, make sure you do the correct circle. Ta-da! It's starting to look alien-like. So this is why you want lenses that can screw off. Take your eyepieces and place them back inside your mask. You'll want to leave these off, but just for demonstration purposes, I screwed them back on. Using screw-on lenses means you won't have to use any glue to keep them secure. Now, with your Dremel, drill in some small holes on the marks you made. I also used a piece of the Dremel to make the holes wider because I thought they were just too small to be noticeable. I forgot to record this part, but with the Dremel, smooth out all of the edges of your craft foam just by running it over with the Dremel. Once I was done smoothing out the edges of the foam, I took the sides of the goggles and made sure they aligned properly to the mask. I mostly used contact cement for this project, which was the first time I had ever used it. Make sure when you use it, you're in a well-ventilated area and you're not near an open flame, obviously. It's also kind of messy, which is annoying. Apply the contact cement to the parts you want bonded and then leave it alone for about 15 minutes. I recommend keeping a small bowl of water and some paper towels or some rags nearby so that you can quickly and easily clean up any stray contact cement that happens to drip on by. Once you've waited your 15 minutes, align the pieces together, press and hold them for a few seconds. The bonding should happen almost instantly. And here it is. It's starting to look more and more like an actual pair of goggles. Next, you're going to want to attach your mask trim to the mask. So get out your contact cement and put it all over the edge of the mask and all over the mask trim. And just like before, wait your 15 minutes and then adhere the two pieces together. Then cut off any excess you might have with an X-Acto knife. And to make sure those edges are clean, we're going over everything once more with the Dremel, just lightly grazing it over the edges of the two pieces together. Now we begin making the earpieces, even though it may not look like it right now. Using Luna Lens pattern, trace out two long rectangular pieces on your EVA foam. And you don't have to use X-Acto knives to cut this out, it's all straight pieces, so you can just use your pair of scissors. And you guessed it, we're back to dremeling the edges to make sure they're nice and clean. This part might take some trial and error, but we need to make these round by cutting out small triangular notches into these rectangular pieces so that when we close them together, it'll actually form a circle. I spaced my notches about 2-ish inches apart, and I also made the triangular notches maybe about 1 centimeter high. They were quite small. With your contact cement, lightly, lighter than I did, coat the inside notches. After 15 minutes, squeeze those notches together, press and hold for a few seconds, and then they'll stay shut. This makes one side of the earphones smaller than the other. And with your contact cement, like always, apply it, wait 15 minutes. You'll secure the two ends of the earpieces together. So as you can see, one end is larger than the other, which is what we want so that it gets more of a rounded appearance. Then we're going to secure the earpieces to the sides of our goggles. Brush on your contact cement, like always. On the earpieces, you should have already marked where they're going to line up so you don't apply too much contact cement. Now, I think I didn't quite understand Lunalens tutorial here, which is my fault, but what I ended up doing was cutting out the entirety of the inner mask instead of just where the eye holes would be. Regardless, it's going on the inside, and don't attach it yet, but I'm just showing, for demonstration purposes, how it'll end up looking. Now back to the ear holes. Using the inner part of the earphones, trace 2 circles. They're not going to be perfectly circular, but that's okay here. Next, cut out those 2 circles. Just for demonstration purposes, they're going to end up going inside here. Next, cut out 2 smaller circles out of craft foam. I didn't have a pattern for this, I just sort of eyeballed it off of a smaller piece of EVA foam. Then, of course, cut those 2 pieces out. And back to the Dremel, just smoothing out the edges again. With a dollop of contact cement, secure those 2 smaller craft foam circles onto the larger EVA foam circles. To give it more dimension, I sort of made like a bevel along the outside of the craft foam circle. Then I made a small indentation at the center with the Dremel. This isn't super necessary, but to me it looks like Oracle's goggles go inside a little bit right there. Then I brushed contact cement onto the outsides of these circles and then also to the inside of the earpieces where they're going to connect. And then very carefully align those 2 pieces together. I found it easier to do this from the inside rather than the outside of the earpieces. Pivoting back to the inner part of the mask, brush some contact cement all along the mask trim piece. And then do the same to the outside parts of the inner face mask. Line up the tops of the 2 pieces first, because those 2 pieces actually need to line up. The bottom section of the mask trim is going to stick out, but that's okay because that's what we want. This part isn't actually necessary, but I found it helpful. Right now, the side pieces of our goggles are a little bit floppy because the earpieces they're heavier than the side pieces. So with some wire you have lying around, for me it was floral wire, could just be like a coat hanger for you, cut 2 pieces for each side and then hot glue them to the inside part. Next, we need to fill in the seams of our layers of foam. I used hot glue for this because I'm cheap, but honestly, you're gonna want to use Kwik Seal for this. It's just a lot cleaner. And here it is, our assembled mask. Now we just have to make it look prettier. I spent a lot of time dremeling those edges of hot glue from trying to fill up the seams, and I think if you used PlastiDip, you wouldn't need to spend as much time as I did trying to make everything look super clean, because I never got it quite perfect. The first step to making these goggles pretty is to lay down a layer of primer, because foam sucks up paint. I end up using Mod Podge because it's pretty inexpensive. To contain the wire, I just cut out 2 small pieces of craft foam to lay on top. And this is how it looks so far. Next is moving onward to paint. I used a mixture of blue and black paint because I didn't have any dark blue paint and I really didn't feel like going out and buying any. Oracle's goggles look black, but they also look sort of like a very, very dark blue, so I just mixed the colors together until I got a bluish but very dark color of paint. And this part is super easy, just paint that sucker all over front and back, inside and out. Then with some black paint, I painted the inside circles of the earpieces. And ta-da! To make the red under the nose circles, I just painted a piece of Scotch tape. And my cat was super helpful throughout this whole process. Then you just attach that piece of Scotch tape to the inside, and voila! I didn't record this because it was dark outside, but I used a matte spray just to seal the paint. I realized I actually wanted to be able to wear the goggles while in costume, so I cut out a piece of elastic by measuring it to the back of my head where the earpieces would be. Measured that, cut it out, and made sure it would actually fit inside. And I used my good old trusty contact cement to adhere the elastic to the inner part of the earphones. And there you have it. It actually ended up working really well. I never once felt like they were going to fall off my head. To finish it all off, just going to screw on those red lenses back to the rest of the goggles. And that's it. As you can see, I think they look pretty darn cool. They can actually be worn like actual goggles. I hope this was helpful to all of the wonderful Futaba Sakura cosplayers out there. If you want to see pictures of the mask in action, I've actually got some coming in right now. You can check out my Instagram. Username is Rose of Battle. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.